I worked at a 7-Eleven's in Chicago. On the surface, life looked calm, but inside there was an emptiness that kept eating at me. It had been a year since we got married. My wife was 27, fair-skinned with a slightly rosy tone, soft and delicate, so beautiful that people often stopped to look. I felt lucky she was mine, but at the same time my conscience pricked me because I couldn't give her the time and affection she deserved. My shifts stretched from morning till night. After a long, tiring day, I'd come home, eat, and fall straight into bed. Sometimes she would complain, "Why don't you give me time? I'm not just your wife, I'm a person too." I would always smile and say, "Just a little more time. Everything will be fine." My intentions were honest, but the truth was I was failing to understand her feelings. I thought marriage was a story that runs on its own without effort. But the real story is written when both people put in time and attention for each other. Maybe that was my biggest mistake. That day the weather felt different. After the rain, the air was cool and humid. I left the store earlier than usual. I wanted to surprise my wife and spend some time with her. Maybe after a long while we could get close again. When I reached the apartment door, I heard laughter and soft whispers from inside. For a moment I was startled. I thought perhaps she had a friend over. But when I opened the door, the scene that met my eyes turned my world upside down. She was sitting on the couch with a strange young man. They were so close that there was barely any space between them. The young man's lips were on her pink mouth. My wife's eyes were closed, as if she were lost in that moment. Without thinking, I said, "What is happening?" Both of them jumped up in panic. My wife's face flushed red and the young man drew his hand back gently. But it felt like someone had stabbed my heart. I shouted, "What are you doing? Who is this?" Hesitating, my wife said, "He's my boyfriend. We are happy together." Those words felt like death to me. A hush fell over the room. All I could hear were my own rapid heartbeats and breath. My wife stood with her eyes downcast, and that stranger stared at me as if it were his right. Angrily I yelled, "Boyfriend? You're married. What is all this?" She looked at me with moist eyes and a faint defiance. "Yes, I'm married to you, but where is the togetherness in this marriage? When did you ever give me time? I called for you. I tried to make you understand, but you were always lost in your job, in your tiredness, and in your excuses." Each of her words ripped my heart further. I stepped forward and grabbed the collar of the young man's shirt. "Is this all because of you?" He gave a poisonous smile and said, "No, man, this is all because of you. You left your wife alone. I just filled that void." At first my hand trembled, but the next instant he jerked away and slapped me hard across the cheek. Stars flew before my eyes. My wife cried out, "Stop! Don't fight, please," but I was already broken inside. I couldn't hold her hand, couldn't hide my pain. Tears flowed from my eyes. In the room, the echo of my helplessness, her betrayal, and that stranger's arrogance all mingled together. I sat on that chair, trembling inside. The room's air felt like a conspiracy against me. The scene kept replaying in my mind, that stranger close to my wife, and me reduced to a useless shadow. The sting from the slap still burned on my cheek, but a fiercer fire raged in my chest. My pride, my trust, my relationship, everything shattered in a moment. It felt as if the ground had slipped from beneath my feet, and I was hanging in empty space with no support. For a moment our eyes met. There was no softness in hers, only a cold, hollow look. It was as if I had become a responsibility or an obstacle to her. The same woman I had dreamed with, the woman I had envisioned a future with, was standing before me with a stranger. Tears streamed down my face. I bent my knees and buried my head. My heart screamed, but no words came from my mouth. I kept thinking, has my life really become so meaningless? Were my hard work, my love, my sacrifices all for nothing? The silence in the room became torture. I heard the stranger's footsteps as he moved toward the door. As he left, his laugh sprinkled salt on my wounds. Man, learn to take care of your wife. Otherwise people like me will just come in. The door closed. I sank to the floor, shattered dot the next morning. Chicago's cold air gave me courage even before I woke fully. I had been awake all night. Images of that scene kept replaying in my head. But the time for tears was over. Another voice had begun to speak inside me. Persist this. The emotional pain is real, but your next step must be deliberate. I mustered the strength to shower and eat, and stepped outside as if obeying an inner command that urgent decisions had to be made. First, I examined the room where everything had happened. I wanted to change everything, but I knew I couldn't destroy the evidence. Silently, I started taking photos of books, phone chargers, and the area around the couch. Anything that might prove useful. Bottles, traces of messages, an open window, anything that could serve as evidence. Then I opened my phone and backed up messages, call logs, and a few photos I had taken absent-mindedly before. I stored every piece of evidence in an organized folder, noting dates and times so there could be no doubt later. That process made me feel stronger, as if I had put the flow of water into a container. Then I called two close friends, one a childhood friend who was always practical and level-headed, and the other a co-worker who had become a companion through shifts. I laid everything out for them plainly. I did not hide my feelings, but I did not expose my pride either. They listened patiently. The older friend said, "We'll handle this. Before doing anything in anger, take the right steps." The other immediately suggested talking to a lawyer and, if possible, requesting CCTV recordings from neighbors or the apartment, because real evidence gives you power. They didn't just give me courage, they gave me a plan to act on Dot as the next step. I didn't tell my manager, at least, not yet, but I decided my first priority was to stabilize myself and secure the evidence. I made a clear list in my mind, back up phone and messages, identify possible witnesses and check CCTV, tell friends and family to gain support, seek legal advice. By the end of the day, I had started working on all those fronts. I had a short phone conversation with a lawyer, just for initial guidance, and learned that if you have solid evidence, legal options can open up, whether separation or a formal notice. Hearing that sparked hope inside me. Not hope for revenge, but hope that what happened could be resolved fairly and respectfully. The biggest lesson from the whole process was that setting aside anger and shame and acting logically was the most powerful move I could make. The night's weakness and the tears in my eyes were still there, but they had become a guide, showing me that when a river breaks its banks, rather than trying to rejoin it blindly, you find safer channels to move forward. I never forgot that night, but I decided I would not lose myself again. The day I documented everything, collected photos, confided in friends, and talked to a lawyer, it felt as if my breath had returned. I was no longer a helpless husband only betrayed. I was a person ready to face the injustice done to him. Walking Chicago's streets at night under the neon lights, I told myself, this chapter is over. But my story is not. Now I will decide what my tomorrow looks like. Two paths lay before me. Either deal with the relationship through legal and factual means, or open a new door for my life. I knew whatever I chose this time would not be blind trust, but a conscious, deliberate choice. I created a new folder on my phone and named it New Life. Seeing that name brought me a strange calm. This was not an ending, but a beginning.